Howdy, howdy!
Hello, Rubis!
And welcome to But It Was Aliens! The paranormal comedy podcast where we probe paranormal activity to decide, for the questionable benefit of humanity, whether that activity really was paranormal.
We tickle the balls of the truth.
My name is Mr. Kev in the John, and alongside me with no idea what we'll be covering today, but ready to tickle them balls, is Mr. Granville Moonwalker. Today, we will be covering events in 1977 Brazil. Just to jog memory, one of the most legitimate cases we've yet covered, the Varginha UFO incident, took place in Brazil in 1996, so we are heading a little bit further back here. That one consisted of a bumpy-headed alien with red eyes. Brazil was also the country of the Antonio Villas-Boas abduction, where Villas-Boas got lubed up and banged by aliens with bright red pubes in 1957.
Memory fully jogged. As soon as you said Virginia, I thought of the Virginia Mudman.
Yes, that's the one.
I know it's the one, but instead of the aliens or anything else, just the term Mudman came to mind.
The homeless person, bless them.
Isn't that also the one where the hospital kind of lost the second floor or something?
Yes. Yeah. It was your case.
Memory well and truly jogged. It was a while ago.
Legitimate place we're going to here then.
I think it might have been 5 years ago now. 5.5?
4.5?
5? And a quarter?
It was 84 years ago.
Back in 82.
Oh no. moving on. It was Thursday.
And I threw a pigskin a quarter mile.
It was Thursday, September the 15th, 1977.
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious. 1977. In a town called Paciencia. No, that's not right, is it? Paciencia. Western Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Antonio Rubia was a 33-year-old bus driver. Antonio had an early start and so was heading to work at 2:20 in the morning. Antonio always had early starts, so was up daily at 2, cleaned his teeth, had a quick wash, and then left his house like clockwork between 2:15 and 2:20. The sick bastard. Never trust an early riser, probers.
Never.
When you head out this early, you can see all sorts of things. People returning from a dirty stop out, stubborn pigeons in the road, free milk, all sorts. But one thing you don't expect to see is a UFO. As Antonio headed past a field near his home towards the bus stop, that is exactly what Antonio saw. What did he see, Mr. Moonwalker? A UFO. Sitting in this field was a giant metallic saucer-shaped object. There's no easing into this one. We are 0 to 100, folks. The object appeared to be about 70 metres or 235 feet in diameter. As I said, it was a huge UFO. Boom.
I was about to ask whether he just saw a light in the sky, but you've actually given an object in a field. Now, what year was this? 1977.
Yes.
Was this a prop for anything?
No.
Was there a movie being shot nearby? And
Absolutely not.
Do you know every movie that was filmed in 1977 in Brazil?
I looked into
that
this,
had
yes.
UFOs. Can you name them for me?
There wasn't one.
Smart bastard. What is one of the weirdest things that you've come across in the early hours of the morning?
Well, as I said on our side probe, it will have released by now. As I said in our May side probe, I was walking my dog Moxley the other morning and I saw what could have been a badger, something black and white, but about as tall as my hip. It was bloody massive and it bombed away when it heard us coming. No idea what it was, being truthful. Could have been anything. Too big to be a cat. There wasn't any other dog walkers around, so I don't think it was a dog.
Do you want to know one of the weirdest things I've seen early in the morning?
Yeah.
So, this is going back possibly, I want to say, 15 years?
Mm-hmm.
No, longer than that. I've been 17 to 18 years.
Right.
A friend of ours got really, really drunk. Like, really drunk.
Yep.
So she had to be walked home from the club.
Right.
So, walked her home from the club.
Right.
And then walked back. And then walked from the club again. Only to find a friend of ours on a bench with a girl doing dirty deeds in public on a bench. And I'm pretty sure he still remembers it because I just started laughing and just carried on walking past. That's possibly the weirdest thing I have seen in the morning.
I'm trying to think if I've seen anything weirder now. I don't think that I have.
He remembered he has.
Did I tell you about this? I might have told you on the podcast already. You seen Poltergeist 2? The original?
Possibly not.
I think the guy was called Kane. Real tall, skinny guy. He famously was unwell, I think he had cancer and died shortly after. It was the last thing he ever filmed.
No.
But real freaky looking guy. He's like one of the antagonists of the story. Not to spoil anything, but I saw a guy looking... Again, I was walking the dog. This is what I do very early in the morning, obviously. Otherwise I wouldn't be out and up. So I was walking the dog from where we live, went through all the fields, under the motorway, the dual carriageway, into a farm. At the top of the farm, turn right, you're in a little village outside of where we live. Go through another farm and there's a church. As I was on the farm path heading towards a church, this chap in an old weathered suit was in front of me, real tall and skinny, looked just like this guy from Poltergeist. And the path goes down a hill and up a hill. And he was in front of me. I went down the hill. He was uphill. I couldn't see him. I was literally 5 to 10 seconds behind him, though. So got to the top of the hill. He was just gone. And there isn't anywhere he could have been other than across sort of the field. Because there isn't anywhere to go. It's just...
Damn,
yeah.
son.
And I was like, where the hell did he go? There must be some sort of secret exit into the church graveyard. But... on sort of the other side, but there's a fence and there's just not a way to get through it. And I was like, where the hell did he go? And he wasn't exactly the most mobile either, but he just poof, gone.
No reaction from Mox?
He was looking around. Yeah, Moxley was looking. Yeah, that was weird. In this situation, going back to the actual case, a lot of people may think to investigate, but Antonio did not.
Don't blame him.
Antonio was scared, so Antonio ran.
Don't blame him.
Well, he tried.
Oh no!
Just as Antonio went to take off, an intense bright light like some kind of superpowered football stadium floodlight or the Rapture itself lit up the entire area. Antonio had been by an electric pole and that lit up a bright shade of blue. As the area illuminated, Antonio now realised that he wasn't alone. There were 3 metallic creatures, possibly robots, right by Antonio. One robot was in front of Antonio, one beside him, and one behind him. This was like Attitude Era WWE's The Brood, or more recently The Shield, ready to pounce. A potentially deadly trio about to ambush.
Don't hinder Jinder.
It was at this point, unable to move further than flail his arms, that Antonio realised that he was being somehow held in something similar to a mason jar. One of the creatures floated towards Antonio and he realised that the robotic creature appeared to have a syringe in his hand. Well, at the end of his arm. The creature lifted its arm and thrusted down deep into Antonio. Antonio didn't feel a thing but became aware that he was moving towards the craft. Antonio blacked out.
It's... I don't know if it's very... What year was this?
1977.
Okay.
You answered that yourself in the previous section. This is 1977, isn't it? What year was it?
A lot has gone on. It's been a while since we've heard of robots.
Yeah.
In a UFO.
Indeed.
Like, to the point where I was going to say, I'm out already. Because it was a certain time period where we heard about robots. But now I'm not so sure.
So...
Because I cannot remember what year.
We had one in the 50s?
Yeah, it's normally around that era that you hear of robots, not the 70s.
So I've got an idea about this.
It's fake?
No, actually, quite the opposite. Not this case specifically, just in terms of if we were going to adventure outside of our planet into space, what's the first thing we've done?
True.
We've sent probes out.
You'd send
We've got
something
Voyager
that doesn't need to breathe.
that exited the solar system.
Lackeys.
Yeah, and as our technology gets better and better, we're going to send different types of probes or robotic type mechanisms out before we venture out ourselves. And in fact, they'll be able to go much further than we ever will.
Would you?
So, I might.
Buy a Tesla.
Go on.
Buy a Tesla robot.
This is completely unrelated to how I'm going to answer this, but can you have sex with them? Just curious.
I suppose you can have sex with anything. So.
If you try hard enough. What do you do with them outside of that?
Aren't they, like... I would say they're like a robotic maid.
So I can see their benefit for people who have difficulties in their life, physical disabilities and that, or cognitive disabilities, that kind of thing, who can't do things for themselves, and actually that might create less of a dependence on care, so it's less restrictive for people. So there are benefits in that type of application. For someone with no health difficulties, with all their wits about them and whatnot, what would you need one for? Is it just because people are lazy? Yeah. I don't think I would get one unless it does something that's really cool, like it has a big butthole. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I saw you were drinking. Still not what? Where's the? I buy things like I'll buy a Nintendo Switch because it's fun. I might not actually use it, but it'll be there. What's fun about the Tesla robot?
If I give you a really good answer, you have to give me your Nintendo Switch when you get it. Your
the original
Nintendo
one.
Switch 2.
What's the really good answer?
You've got to swear that you'll give me your Nintendo
absolutely
Switch
not.
2, and you don't get the answer.
You've got no answer, is my suspicion, and you were going to try and think of something.
Maybe, but you'll never know.
Oh, I'm comfortable with that. I'll sleep happily at night cuddling my Nintendo Switch 2, which should be in my hands by the time this episode releases, actually. Won't be in yours.
To be fair, when you mentioned it to me the other day and I looked it up, I was trying to see if I could like get one, but then I realised they come out like literally in about 5 weeks.
Yep.
I was like, I'm not going to play it. I thought they were coming out in like October, November
June.
kind of time, so I was like, yeah, I'll pre-order and then, or I'll just wait and get one. I mean, pre-orders are sold out, so I'll just wait and get one. But if it's coming out in like 5 weeks, I don't think I'm going to have time to play it, so I'm not that fast. I'm
not going to play it. I have a baby and a very big dog that take up all my time in life other than this podcast, and a neglected partner. But I want it. My precious. I'm going to send you photos when I've got it of me just in weird positions in the house with it.
Laying in your bed,
yeah,
like just laying there, stroking it.
Yeah, looking right up at the camera like I'm Gollum. Again, by the time this comes out,
I'm going to have those pictures already.
Antonio was taken aboard the craft, waking with a sudden tremor to find that he was in a metallic corridor. Two of the creatures went one way and the other a different way. Antonio looked down the corridor and could see the field. It was as if the metallic walls of the craft were transparent, though at this point he also realised that the craft had risen off the ground. Antonio had gotten a good look at his captors. The robots were about 4 feet tall, but they all had antennae which shot out the top of their heads, giving them a height closer to 6 feet. They were a metallic colour. The heads of the robots resembled American footballs like Hey Arnold, only vertical, with a row of what looked like small mirrors stretching horizontally across the middle of the head. The mirrors had a tint of blue except for one, which was darker than the rest. As for the bodies, they were buff. Is it a torso? The middle bit was thick, and they had arms similar to elephant trunks which narrowed to a pointed tip. The bodies were also covered in scales like a scaly manfish. The robots had one single leg, and on the end of the leg seemed to be a saucer. I have a mock-up by Antonio himself for you, Mr. Moonwalker.
Before I take a look at this,
yeah,
the descriptions you were talking about, I pictured that giant ball from The Incredibles,
right?
That the kid sets on the town with the like arms that come out and stuff.
Yep.
Also with the legs of what's that Disney cartoon with the ducks?
Scrooged?
It's like that, but you've got, I know there's Darkwing
Scrooge
Duck,
McDuck.
then there's Scrooge McDuck, but then there's the one where he's got like
DuckTales.
the robot armor.
Duckbot.
It's gonna really piss me off.
I've got no idea, son. You're asking me for Disney.
Right, I'm gonna have a look.
I'd be able to tell you more about a Tesla butthole than I would Disney. Whilst you're looking, I am just going to warn you that Antonio comes from what is commonly referred to as the John School of Art.
Oh, is it going to be a really bad...
An amazing, actually, honourable art. Next level. Like, people who aren't up to speed with how art could be might find it a bit shit, but for those who understand art, this is going to blow their mind.
It is almost like this.
Okay, that does look vaguely familiar, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it wasn't that. It was whoever that pilot duck was. There's going to be people that are listening to this that are just screaming their name at us right now, and I'm just like, yeah, I can't hear you. Well.
I don't even remember the point you were trying to make anymore, to be honest.
Gizmo Duck is the one I'm thinking of. But it was when you were telling me the description. That's what I was picturing.
Okay.
The wheel from Gizmo Duck on the other thing. And look, it's exactly what I was picturing.
It's not a million miles away, is it? It's really not.
It's really not. But what I'm going to say here, this is the John School of Art.
Yep.
But the bottom part, the singular leg, looks like a screw.
Yeah.
Like he's got a screw up his bum.
He's being screwed.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Okay. Elephant dicks for arms.
Yeah.
Screw up his bum.
Obviously had the syringe in the arm at one point. Is it like a
Is that a
utility
belt
tool?
of syringes around his waist?
I'm not entirely sure. It could be. It could just be equipment that they stick into their arms. So, like, I need a pair of scissors, I'll put those in there. I need a syringe, I'll stick those in my arm. I need a dildo, I'll... Sorry?
Like magnetic or magnets on the end, so they
like the Switch 2 controllers.
And then switch them off. Maybe. How much would that suck if your Switch 2 turned up and it didn't work?
That's not going to happen. To be fair, it will sit on my shelf regardless.
It's just going to be an ornament, so.
But I'll have it. A blue light suddenly flashed, and Antonio was now in a circular room. This room was full of the robotic creatures. There was a good dozen on either side of the room. Antonio had been struggling this whole time, but had been unable to move or make a sound. But suddenly, Antonio's voice worked. Antonio shouted, "What do you want? Who are you?" The creatures all fell to the floor holding their antennas. The lights in the room turned bluer. Antonio could hear the entities breathing, which was weird as he thought they were robots, but Antonio was still powerless, unable to move. The creatures got up. At this point, Antonio observed a small piano-like box about 6 inches across, standing on 2 poles directly in front of him. On either side, there were antennae, and on the front, keys like a piano. There was a can-like bit on the top into which the robot-like creatures inserted something from their tool belts. Every time that they inserted something into this box, a different image appeared on the wall opposite the box. The robot creatures showed Antonio 10 images. The first was of Antonio butt naked on a table swinging his arms whilst 2 of the figures examined him. The next was of Antonio standing still naked. The next zoomed in on Antonio's package. No, I jest. The third image was of Antonio dressed. The fourth image was of a horse and cart with a barefooted man in a torn shirt and a straw hat. The fifth image was of an orange ball with Antonio stood beside it.
It's like create a character mode.
The sixth image was of the same ball, only it was now blue, with one of the robots beside it. The seventh was a little bit more challenging to interpret, but appeared to be a dog attacking one of the creatures and one of the creatures melting in response to the barks. The eighth image was of some kind of UFO factory. The ninth image was of an old train entering a tunnel. The 10th and final image was of a busy road filled with cars. The images may have actually been moving because Antonio also described after the first image of him naked that he saw himself literally vomiting and shitting in his trousers, which didn't transpire at the time, but Antonio did report that he later became very ill.
I have a cartoon picture here.
Yep.
Of Antonio being shown the pictures by the robots.
Yes.
Do you think they have shown him the series of events but in reverse?
Possibly, yeah.
So they don't... The same way if you read a manga, you don't read it the same way as a book, you read it from the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you reckon this is similar? So the first thing they see is the cars and the tunnel, and then that's them getting him, and then he's on a table being slabbed. And that's the last bit.
It could be. It could be.
He got slapped.
I think what I thought is he specified that he saw himself pooping his pants, but it didn't happen. Didn't it?
I shat myself, but I didn't.
I can't remember if I comment on that later in the research, but it definitely occurred to me. I didn't really shit myself, it's just what they showed me. Everything else happened exactly as you were shown though, right, Antonio? Yes.
How do you think you would respond if you saw a video of you getting slabbed?
Oh, shown a video by who?
I was about to say anyone, but
I'd be a bit confused.
If your parents came round, Kev, we received a video.
Not another one.
No, if you were taken by aliens and slabbed, and then they showed you a video of them slabbing you, how do you think you'd react?
Probably watch the video and no, I don't think I would. I don't know that I've ever, unless I really needed the toilet and they weren't letting me go.
I suppose it depends on how they slab you.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. Like, I don't think I've ever felt the need to physically poo when
Being
frightened.
slapped. What if
I'd be confused, certainly.
in the video you see them slicing off your dick?
Then I'd probably check my dick. And if it was missing, at that point I might shit.
Fair enough.
During the image show, one of the creatures approached Antonio with a syringe. The syringe begun rotating as the robot neared Antonio, lifted Antonio's arm, and stuck the needle right in Antonio's middle finger. Antonio watched helplessly as the syringe appeared to fill with Antonio's blood. Antonio didn't feel a thing though. The robot then took Antonio's blood and drew 3 circles on the wall before poking the circles with an L-shaped tool. Were the creatures analysing Antonio's blood with their technology right in front of him? After this, the robots literally threw Antonio overboard like he was being chucked off a pirate ship, and Antonio awoke by the bus station he worked at. One of the robots was beside Antonio and had all of Antonio's belongings in his bag, which Antonio hadn't seen on the craft. Antonio looked up from his bag to realise that the creature was gone. Antonio looked up further and could see something in the distance in the sky, like he was looking up at a huge balloon. Antonio looked at his watch and realised that it had stopped at exactly 2:20. The only other person outside the station at this time was a well-known town drunk, so whilst they may back it up, most people wouldn't believe. The drunk, however, did tell anyone who'd listen that he saw a UFO that morning. Antonio went inside the station and found that it was actually about 2:55. The ordeal must have lasted 35 minutes. Antonio is ready for the 3:10 bus, later than his usual arrival, but not late enough to make him late for work.
How considerate of them.
Just got there in time, eh?
And what a coincidence that the only person that saw this was the town drunk. Now, I know you're probably going to get into this, but does Antonio go on and tell loads of people? Or are we hearing about this kind of, he's told one person and they've let the story out once it passed? Or he's let the story out just before it's passed?
So, he did talk. We are going to get into this pretty much in the next section, I believe.
So he talked and the drunk corroborated his story, but it's a drunk,
Yeah.
so people aren't going to listen to him.
Yeah. But why would the drunk need to corroborate it?
Why would he also need to lie?
Indeed.
What is Antonio's character like?
Honourable?
Trustworthy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a bus driver. A man of the community. At work, Antonio came down all sore and ill.
Bet he did.
Antonio fought effort and still drove his bus. Every now and then, Antonio's vision darkened, but Antonio was honourable and trustworthy, so kept on working. It was at this point that Antonio remembered an 11th picture, which showed smoke-like waves coming out of Antonio. Antonio took this to be communication that Antonio was going to be sore all over, which he now was. Antonio would claim that every image he saw came to pass, except the one where he shat his pants. Antonio does admit that he had the trots on Friday and Saturday following this ordeal, but he didn't shart.
Yeah, but he didn't.
Things got pretty bad though. By Saturday, it was so bad that Antonio couldn't go to work. By Sunday, Antonio had started burning up, and on Monday, Antonio went to the bus station to declare that he quit his job. Antonio asked colleagues to hose him down to relieve the burning. Antonio was taken to see the company nurse, and they had to restrain him with ropes as he was babbling about UFOs whilst flailing. Antonio was visited by bus company psychologist Dr. Nelly Carbonell, who pronounced Antonio to be sane but in need of hospital treatment, so Antonio was transported to hospital. He was soon discharged, but in being assessed for workers' relief benefit entitlements, the doctor declared this case to be of huge interest, and Antonio, still with a huge fever, was studied by 6 further doctors. The fever lasted for 33 days before Antonio went back to normal.
Got a
Imagine
question.
being ill for 33 days with the flu or something. Crazy. Question?
Workers' relief benefit entitlement.
Yeah.
Is that like sick pay?
Yeah, basically.
Sick pay for a job that he doesn't have because he quit.
Well, he couldn't work.
But he quit.
Yeah, consider it like job seekers pay then.
Okay, fair enough. Why quit? Why not just say you're ill and explain like that you've got this temperature that won't go down? So you quit and then you ask people at work to hose you down. Why didn't you do it the other way around and not quit your job?
Maybe he was so ill that he thought he was going to pass, and so it just wasn't worth going to work.
Then just don't quit your job. Pass.
Well, he quit his job, alright?
I quit. Now use work resources to help me.
Maybe they were putting pressure on him to drive, and he just couldn't.
Well,
he was like on his deathbed kind of thing.
He himself chose to carry on driving. He could have stopped the bus. He put the safety of people at risk.
Until he realised.
That's not a good bus driver.
Well, he didn't know what he had.
He was blacking out.
Yeah, and then he didn't go back to work the next day.
Continued to drive. Terrible.
He wasn't to know. It was also fresh and new.
He did know, though.
But once he did, he didn't do it again.
He quit.
Exactly. Saving the world.
And then wanted work to help him.
Saving the world.
I'm surprised they did. Also, 1977 and work having like a psychologist. Like,
yeah, that feels...
bus company having a psychologist back then seems so off. Almost so off, like I don't believe it.
What bus company... I mean, maybe this is common, I just don't know, because it's not a career I've ever worked within, but do bus companies tend to employ psychologists? Fair enough, they might get one in if there's been an accident to support someone, but to have one on call kind of thing.
I would assume in this day and age, more likely. 1977, no. I mean, I could be wrong, but it's just highly unlikely.
This one was investigated by UFO investigative author Irene Granchi, who interviewed Dr. Nellie Carbonell on the 8th of October, with Dr. Carbonell himself having interviewed Antonio in the aftermath of the incident, as we mentioned. Antonio himself was too pissed off and unwell to interview apparently, but by October the 18th, just over a month after the incident, Antonio had calmed down, aka recovered, and went to visit Irene with his brother Arnaldo. Irene was due to leave to teach class 40 minutes after Antonio arrived, so they hammered through the facts we've covered in this episode. Irene did go back to investigate the landing site though. By the time this was investigated in October, sadly any evidence of a landing in that field had since vanished. This case was published in the APRO Bulletin, Volume 26, Number 4, and has hit various media outlets, hence our knowledge of this one today. There's nothing out there suspicious pertaining to Antonio or those who investigated this one. Irene wrote a book on lots of UFO reports and alien experiences, just as many have. That's all the details on the event itself.
How credible are these doctors?
Credible? There's nothing, like, dodgy in their background.
It's also... they rushed the interview, which is not a good sign for me. Because could have taken the time to delve into some of those questions a bit more and found out a bit more.
How serious are you taking it, really?
If you're, I've got class in 40 minutes, so let's just have a quick 20-minute chat. And
had have been the Virginia or Roswell or something, they'd have scheduled it for a time they were free, wouldn't they?
Yep.
Let's have a good think about this case. What lends credibility to me is that these things don't look anything like anything else out there in popular culture other than the duck robot, and the events aren't hugely similar to most cases we've covered. I have several times mentioned that it's more believable to me if aliens don't resemble humans. And sure, these creatures were humanoid, but they weren't greys and they didn't have faces.
Weren't they just robots?
They're half barstools. Unless these were exosuits, which again I think is quite likely if we ourselves venture into space in this manner one day. So we do have uniqueness on the side of this case. What I find unusual is that a 1977 Brazilian bus company employed both a nurse and a psychologist. What kind of shit did these bus drivers see? I've worked in a lot of jobs with vicarious trauma, and not a single one of those jobs has directly employed a nurse and psychologist to support staff. Further suspicious is that the only witness was a drunk and that there was no evidence of the landing. Now, I'm not talking about indentations, those could have vanished, I agree, but why was nobody taking radiation samples or any further scientific testing? Antonio's blood could have also been tested for contaminants, especially if he was felt to be inexplicably unwell rather than psychotic. None of that took place. The person who investigated this case, Irene Granchi, authored a book called UFOs and Abductions in Brazil, which is a book of account after account of UFO activity, as I indicated. No real evidence was produced further than the witness account. I couldn't find details of these further 6 doctors who examined Antonio. Was this one legit, bullshit, or was it somewhere in the middle whereby Antonio did indeed make these claims, but he was fed up, had tried every excuse under the sun already, and needed a day off work? That is the probe.
So it's a book which just has the account of something that someone said, just that witness's account.
Him and the doctor.
No, I mean her book.
Yeah, she spoke to him and the doctor.
Oh, okay. And nothing more?
No.
So she just goes round, I spoke to this person that said they were abducted or something like that.
Real
so it's
people's
not...
claims, that kind of thing.
Do we have proof that Antonio is real?
Son, of course we do.
Do we?
Yeah.
Where is that proof?
Well, a doctor has verified the case.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the case was real. I'm saying that he was real.
He was real.
There's no suspicion that he wasn't alive.
I'm just wondering if she has made this story up for her book and that's how it's got out.
Yeah. No, she genuinely did go and speak to people.
Okay.
In summary, we've covered the case of Antonio Rubia, a bus driver in Brazil who saw a giant UFO in a field near his house before being abducted in quite gnarly fashion via needle injection, waking aboard that UFO. Robot creatures or possibly unknown entities in exosuits resembling bar stools surrounded Antonio but fainted when he shouted. Antonio was shown several images that appeared to be him naked being experimented on and then feeling sick before unexplainable images involving melting dogs and trains. Whilst this was going on, Antonio had his blood taken. Antonio was then chucked overboard and awoke by his place of work. Antonio became extremely unwell and was admitted to hospital, though he was not psychotic. Antonio was allegedly truthfully examined by bus company Dr. Nelly Carbonell alongside 6 further doctors. An investigator interviewed Dr. Carbonell and later Antonio himself, but no further evidence than Antonio's account was established. We wondered whether this was legit, made up entirely, or whether Antonio was trying to get out of work. Are you ready to conclude yet, Mr. Moonwalker?
I've got a question.
Yes.
If when he spoke or shouted, these aliens fainted, or these robots fainted, passed out, whatever.
Yep.
Why did you stop?
Yeah, keep on shouting and get away.
Like,
absolutely. That's, yeah.
You could, let's say, for example, because he didn't have his voice for a while, and then he did, and then when he spoke, they fainted. Why didn't you take your time for your strength to come back into your body and keep talking so they stay down and see if your strength recovers and you can move, and then see if you can escape?
Yeah.
I mean, you might not be able to fly the craft, but you can try.
Keep on shouting, see if you can pop their heads.
Yeah.
you fighting for your life at this point, potentially, aren't you? As far as you know.
At this point, he just gave up and accepted he'd been slapped.
Yeah.
And shot himself.
So are you saying that it was aliens?
No, I'm not.
Don't laugh.
I was going to say, I think what happened is he either overslept and was late for work and just had a really crazy dream, or he got to work and was like, oh, I'm just going to sit down for a minute, and then fell asleep, and then had a really crazy dream. Or it was just made up, not by him, but by the author of the book.
Yeah.
Although you did say that she went and visited people.
Yeah, as far as I could find, this is all like legit. There was no questions on that side of things.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think he got abducted at all. Might have been someone that was trying to see if they could make some money outside of being a bus driver, so they don't have to keep getting up at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, for me, this one is somehow both kind of unbelievable, but yet also kind of believable. I mean, obviously I'm calling bullshit, but it's just enough away from the standard story that I did stop and think for a second. That thought was that either this guy was trying to get out of work with the most elaborate excuse ever, or this gentleman had a legitimate psychotic break. I'm not saying that it was aliens. Any final thoughts from yourself, Mr. Moonwalker, before we conclude?
No.
Then that is a wrap for today. Thank you for listening to But It Was Aliens! If you've enjoyed what we do, you can enjoy some more over at patreon.com/But It Was Aliens, where each month we release bonus episodes we call side probes. You can gain access to these episodes for quite literally less than a cup of coffee. We have covered all sorts of dark and disturbed paranormal mysteries, history and conspiracies, including dogs with power comparable to the X-Men and little creatures that will do unspeakable things with your skull. You can share episode suggestions with us on the X Twitter at But It Was Aliens. You could also say hello on Facebook, where connected to But It Was Aliens is a secretly public private group called Extraterrestrial Towers. Being a member of Extraterrestrial Towers grants you protection from the aliens when they invade. We may have pictures of you nude, which allegedly, truthfully, may have been drawn by Mr. Moonwalker, but we haven't spied on you naked to inform these drawings. Mr. Moonwalker has not taken Polaroids of your private bits. I don't know where that started. I do not. That is it for this episode, so until next time, where does the sky start?
I just have a really good memory.
Truth is up there. #. Wow.